December 21st, 1944, 6:37 a.m., Malmedy, Belgium. The stone bridge was 143 years old, built in 1801, wide enough for one vehicle, strong enough to hold 3 Panzer tanks if they crossed single file. Private First Class Elias Brennan crouched behind the eastern wall, 19 years old. 5'9", 148 pounds. Alone. 3 German tanks rolled toward him through the morning fog. Panzer Mark IVs, 42 tons each, 75mm main guns, 2 machine guns per tank. Behind them, 40 SS Waffen infantry soldiers moved in tactical formation. Eli had an M19 03A4 Springfield rifle, 4 bazooka rockets, and 20 minutes before 11,000 American soldiers would be completely encircled. The German radio operator in the forward command post was writing his report. His handwriting was neat, precise, the kind of handwriting they taught in German schools. Encountering strong resistance at bridge. Estimate 12 to 15 American defenders. Coordinated anti-tank positions. Recommend artillery support before advance. 12 to 15 defenders. The operator looked up from his notepad, counted the muzzle flashes he'd seen in the last 6 minutes. Stone wall, barn, half-track. 3 different positions. 3 different firing angles. Mathematics didn't lie. 3 positions meant 3 soldiers minimum. Probably more. He wrote the number again. 12 to 15. Underlined it twice. The truth was simpler. One farm kid from eastern Kentucky who'd learned to shoot groundhogs at 340 yards because missing meant his family didn't eat that week. One soldier who'd been alone since he was 12 years old. One man who'd figured out how to make 40 Germans believe they were fighting an entire platoon. This is the story of how a coal miner's son with a borrowed rifle became the most dangerous soldier the SS faced at the Battle of the Bulge. Pike County, Kentucky, 1930. Elias Brennan was 5 years old the first time he killed something to keep his family from starving. The rifle was a Winchester Model 67, single shot, 22 caliber. It had belonged to his grandfather, who died 3 months earlier. His father, Silas Brennan, handed it to him on a Saturday morning in March. Groundhogs, his father said. Silas worked the Black Mountain coal mines, $3.50 a day when the mine was running, 2 days a week when it wasn't. The Depression had turned eastern Kentucky into a place where children learned to hunt before they learned to read. Groundhogs dig holes in the pastures, Silas explained. Cows step in the holes, break their legs. Lose a cow, we lose everything. He pointed to the eastern field. 7 acres of thin grass and rocks. Neighbors will pay 15 cents for every groundhog tail you bring them. Prove the animal's dead. 15 cents. 3 tails bought a dozen eggs. 5 tails bought a pound of flour. Don't miss, Silas said. Ammunition costs money. Eli learned not to miss. 1930 to 1944. 14 years. 743 groundhogs. 386 rabbits. Documented in a notebook his mother gave him. Each kill marked with a date and distance. The groundhogs were the hard ones. 6 inches from nose to tail. They'd sit up on their haunches to look for predators. Exposed for maybe 8 seconds. Then gone. Most of them at 300 yards or more. Eli's longest confirmed kill was 512 yards. A groundhog sitting on a limestone outcrop above Troublesome Creek. He'd estimated the wind at 4 miles per hour left to right, aimed 14 inches to the left, 14 inches high to compensate for bullet drop. The shot took 1.6 seconds to travel the distance. The groundhog dropped. Uncle Matthias, who owned the farm by then, walked the distance with a measuring tape. 512 yards. Wrote it in the notebook himself. That's a hell of a shot for a 12-year-old, he said. Eli didn't smile. He never smiled when he was hunting. Hunting wasn't fun. Hunting was mathematics and wind reading and breath control and the difference between eating and not eating. Matthias stared at the boy, 12 years old, already thinking like a soldier, already measuring targets and distances like he was preparing for war. He didn't know how right he was. Eli was thinking about his father, about what had happened 3 years earlier, 1937. The collapse. Silas Brennan died on a Tuesday afternoon in September. Section 7 of the Black Mountain Mine. A support beam cracked. The ceiling came down. 11 men buried under 6,000 tons of rock and coal. It took them 4 days to dig out the bodies. Eli was 12 years old. He stood next to his mother Ruth at the funeral. 5 other widows stood with them. 63 miners stood behind them. None of them could afford to take the day off work. They came anyway. The mine paid for the coffins, nothing else. Ruth Brennan got a job washing laundry for families in Pikeville. $4 a week. Eli hunted every day after school, sometimes before school. The 15-cent groundhog bounties kept them eating. 8 months later, Ruth died of pneumonia. The medicine cost $6. They had $4.30. The state sent Eli to live with his uncle, Matthias Brennan, a hard man who ran a hard farm in Breathitt County. "You earn your keep here," Matthias said the first day. 20 groundhogs a week minimum. Don't make quota, you sleep in the barn. Eli made quota every week for the next 5 years. He slept in the barn anyway. He preferred it. Alone meant safe. Alone meant nobody could hurt you when they died. The skill transfer. By 1942, Eli had documented every shot he'd ever taken. The notebook had numbers other 17-year-olds didn't have. Total kills 129 animals. Average range 340 yards. Success rate 94.7%. Longest shot 512 yards. Shortest shot 87 yards. A rabbit that ran in front of him while he was hunting groundhogs. He'd fired from instinct. Didn't even aim properly. Still hit it. The numbers told a story. Eli understood wind drift, bullet drop, breathing patterns, how to make a trigger pull so smooth the rifle didn't move. He understood because missing meant consequences. Real consequences. Not a lost trophy or a ruined hunt. Missing meant less money, less food, angry uncle, cold barn. The Army would give him different targets, but the mathematics stayed the same. The math was simple. Fort Knox, Kentucky, October 1942. Eli Brennan enlisted 3 weeks after his 17th birthday. Walked into the recruiting office in Pikeville, signed the papers. Didn't tell Uncle Matthias, just left. The recruiter asked him if he had any special skills. "I can shoot," Eli said. Every recruit said that. The recruiter wrote it down anyway. 8 weeks later, the rifle instructors at Fort Knox realized Eli wasn't exaggerating. Qualification day. M1 Garand rifles. Targets at ranges from 100 to 500 yards. Possible score 250 points. Eli scored 247. Missed 3 shots out of 50. Sergeant Marcus Polk walked over to him afterward. Polk was a rifle instructor, 22 years in the Army. He'd seen good shooters before. He hadn't seen this. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Polk asked. "Pike County," Eli said. "Hunting, surviving." Polk looked at the scorecard again. Looked at Eli. Skinny kid, quiet, didn't brag. Didn't talk unless someone asked him a question. "You shoot like you grew up poor," Polk said. "I did." Polk nodded. He understood. The Depression had created a generation of men who learned skills because they had to, not because they wanted to. "You're going to infantry," Polk said. "Probably a rifle company. Maybe a sniper detail if they're smart." "Yes, Sergeant." "Don't get killed doing something stupid. Men who can shoot like you are valuable." Eli didn't respond. He'd been alone since he was 12. Valuable was a word other people used. He just did what needed doing. September 1944. Replacement Depot, England. Company K 3rd Battalion, 120th Infantry Regiment, 30th Infantry Division. The 30th had fought through Normandy, St. Lo, the Falaise Gap. They'd earned a reputation as one of the hardest fighting divisions in Europe. They'd also taken 92% casualties in the last 72 hours. Eli arrived as a replacement, one of 40 new men sent to fill holes in the line. The survivors looked at the replacements the way farmers looked at animals they knew wouldn't survive winter. Most wouldn't. Corporal Warren Thorne was the exception. 23 years old, medic, from Pennsylvania. He'd been with Company K since Normandy, survived when most hadn't. "You ever been in combat?" Thorne asked Eli the first night. "No." "You scared?" Eli thought about it. Thought about the barn in Breathitt County, the cold nights, Uncle Matthias yelling, his mother dying because they didn't have $6. "I've been scared before," Eli said. "This doesn't feel different." Thorne laughed. Not a happy laugh, a recognition laugh. "You grew up poor, didn't you?" "How'd you know? Poor kids don't get scared the same way. We've already lost everything. Can't lose it twice." Eli nodded. That was exactly right. They became friends, not close friends. Combat didn't allow close friends, but they watched each other. That counted for something. December 16, 1944. The assault begins. Adolf Hitler had committed Germany's last reserves to one final offensive. Operation Wacht am Rhein, Watch on the Rhine. 200,000 German troops, 1,000 tanks. They hit the American lines in the Ardennes forest at 5:30 a.m. The plan was simple. Punch through the Ardennes, split the Allied armies, capture Antwerp, force a negotiated peace. If it worked, the war continued. If it failed, Germany was finished. At the spearhead was the 1st SS Panzer Division, Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, battle-hardened Waffen-SS troops with a brutal reputation earned in Russia. Company K held a sector near Malmedy, a small Belgian town nobody had heard of until December 17th. December 17th, 1944. The massacre. Kampfgruppe Piper, a German battle group led by SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Piper. They encountered American soldiers from the 285th Field Artillery Observation Battalion near a crossroads south of Malmedy. The Americans surrendered, 120 men. They laid down their weapons, put their hands up. The SS herded them into a field. Then they opened fire with machine guns. 84 Americans executed. The rest escaped by playing dead under the bodies of their friends. The news spread through American lines within hours. Radio reports, survivor testimony. Officers gathered their men and explained what had happened. Captain Nathaniel Cross gathered Company K that evening. He was 31 years old, West Point graduate. He'd commanded Company K since Normandy. The Germans massacred 84 prisoners 3 kilometers from here, Cross said. SS troops, same unit heading our direction. He let that sink in. Surrendering is not an option. They're not taking prisoners. You fight or you die. Those are your choices. Eli stood in the back, listened, understood. Uncle Matthias used to say, "World doesn't care if you're fair or kind. It'll kill you same as anyone." The SS had just proven him right. December 18th to 20th. The grind. German artillery pounded American positions for 3 days straight. Mortars, 88mm guns. Nebelwerfers that screamed like demons when they fired. Company K held their sector. Barely. 147 men on December 16th. 13 combat-effective soldiers on December 20th. The rest were dead wounded or so shell-shocked they couldn't function. Eli survived by doing what he'd always done. Stay low, stay quiet, stay alone. Thorne found him in a foxhole on the evening of December 20th. "You doing okay?" Thorne asked. "Same as yesterday." "That's not an answer." Eli looked at him. Thorne's hands were shaking, not from cold, from 3 days of nonstop artillery. "I grew up in a barn in Kentucky," Eli said. "This is bad, but I've been through bad before." Thorne nodded, sat down next to him. "Captain says we're holding a bridge tomorrow. Only bridge for 10 miles. Germans take it, 11,000 of our boys get encircled. Cut off, killed or captured within 48 hours. What's the bridge look like? Stone, old, 1 vehicle wide. We're supposed to hold it with 13 men." Eli did the math. 13 men against a German assault that had already wiped out most of 2 divisions. "We can't hold it," Eli said. "I know." "Captain, no. He knows, says we hold it anyway. Buy time for reinforcements." Eli nodded. He understood. Sometimes you did the impossible because the alternative was worse. December 21st, 1944, 6:25 a.m. The artillery stopped at 6:20 a.m. The silence was worse than the noise. Captain Cross stood at the stone bridge. 13 men spread across 300 yards. Eli was positioned at the eastern wall. Best shooter in the company. Best position. Through the fog, they heard engines. Diesel. Heavy. Getting closer. 3 Panzer tanks emerged. 40 SS infantry soldiers behind them. Cross looked at his 13 men, looked at the tanks, did the mathematics. "Fall back," he said. "Regroup 2 clicks south. That's an order." The men started moving, slowly. Nobody wanted to retreat, but nobody wanted to die for nothing either. Eli didn't move. Cross walked over to him. "That includes you, Brennan." Eli was studying the battlefield. 4 positions visible from where he stood. Stone wall where he crouched now. Barn 40 meters left. Wrecked half-track 60 meters back. Disabled German Panzer 70 meters right. 4 positions. All within sprinting distance, different firing angles. "Sir," Eli said, "I can make them think we're a squad." Cross stared at him. "That's suicide." "Maybe, but if they take this bridge, 11,000 men die in 2 days. I do the math, 1 life versus 11,000 is pretty clear. I'll court-martial you for disobeying orders." Eli looked at him. 19 years old, orphaned at 12, learned to survive when nobody helped. "Grew up alone, sir. This is just Thursday." Cross didn't speak for 10 seconds. Looked at Eli. Looked at the tanks. Looked at his men retreating. He reached into his jacket. Pulled out a piece of paper. Set it on the stone wall. "I wrote a Medal of Honor recommendation last night," Cross said. In case you pull this off and I don't make it back. Eli glanced at the paper, didn't pick it up. What if I don't pull it off? Then I tell them you died following orders, heroically. Cross held out his hand. Eli shook it. Don't get killed doing something stupid, Brennan. Won't, sir. Cross left, took the remaining 12 men with him. The sound of boots on frozen ground faded into the distance. Eli picked up his rifle, checked his ammunition. 4 bazooka rockets in the barn, 57 rounds for the .50 caliber on the half-track, 4 anti-tank grenades near the disabled Panzer. He looked at the 3 German tanks rolling toward him through the fog. In 14 years of hunting, he'd never missed when it mattered. When missing meant his family didn't eat. When missing meant consequences. These were different targets, but the mathematics stayed the same. Breathe, aim, calculate when, squeeze trigger. The first tank was 265 yards away. Eli raised his rifle, settled his breathing, found the German tank commander in his scope. The man's head was visible above the turret hatch, 18 inches wide, 265 yards. Groundhog at 340 yards was 6 inches. This was 3 times easier. Eli squeezed the trigger. The M1903 kicked against his shoulder. The German tank commander dropped backward into the tank. The tank stopped. Machine gun fire erupted from all 3 tanks. Bullets snapped through the air, cracked into the stone wall. Eli was already moving, 40 meters to the barn, full sprint. Behind him, the Germans were shouting, trying to figure out where the shot came from, how many Americans they were fighting. They had no idea it was one farm kid from Kentucky who'd learned to survive by making people think he wasn't alone. That was about to become their biggest mistake. The barn was 38 meters away. Eli covered the distance in 9 seconds. Machine gun fire chased him. Bullets tore chunks out of the frozen ground. One round passed close enough, he felt the pressure change in the air. He crashed through the barn door, rolled left, came up against the far wall. His breathing was hard, controlled. The way he'd learned hunting in Kentucky. When you sprint after a wounded rabbit, you breathe through your nose. Keep your heart rate manageable. Stay ready to shoot. The barn had been used for storage. Hay bales, broken equipment, and leaning against the east wall exactly where intelligence said it would be a bazooka. M9A1, 2-man weapon, designed to be operated by a gunner and a loader. Eli would be both. 4 rockets lay in a wooden crate, 60mm diameter. Shaped charge warheads. Effective range 300 yards against armor. Eli grabbed the bazooka, loaded the first rocket. The weapon weighed 13 pounds empty, 18 pounds loaded. Outside, he heard German voices, shouting, coordinating. They'd seen muzzle flash from 2 positions now. Stone wall, barn. 2 positions meant 2 soldiers minimum. That was the trick. Make them believe the math. 2 positions, 2 men. Maybe more hiding. Maybe a squad. Keep them guessing. Keep them cautious. Eli moved to the barn's side door, opened it 6 inches, had a clear line of sight to the German tanks. Tank number 1 had stopped. The commander Eli shot was slumped over the hatch. The crew was trying to pull him down. The tank sat motionless. 230 yards away, tank number 2 was advancing. Its turret swung toward the barn, looking for the bazooka they knew had to be there. Tank number 3 held position, covering. Eli raised the bazooka, rested it on the door frame, aimed at tank number 1, center mass, the turret ring where the rotating turret met the hull, weakest point of armor. He squeezed the trigger. The rocket motor ignited. Backblast filled the barn with smoke and pressure. The rocket streaked across the gap. 1.2 seconds of flight. Impact. The shaped charge detonated against the turret ring. Superheated copper jet punched through the armor. Found ammunition storage inside. The tank exploded. Fire and smoke erupted from every hatch. The crew that had been trying to pull out their dead commander were thrown backward. Burning, 1 down. Tank number 2's main gun swung directly at the barn. Eli saw it, knew what was coming. He dropped the bazooka, sprinted for the back door. 10 meters, 8, 6. The 75mm gun fired. The shell hit the front of the barn, high explosive. The entire front wall disintegrated. Wooden beams, haystone, all of it became shrapnel traveling at supersonic speeds. Eli dove through the back door as the barn collapsed behind him. He hit the ground rolling, came up running, 60 meters to the half-track. German infantry were advancing now. They'd seen the barn explode, thought whoever was inside was dead. They were wrong. The half-track. The M3 half-track had been disabled 3 days earlier. German 88mm shell through the engine block. The crew had abandoned it, left the .50 caliber machine gun mounted on the ring. Eli reached it, dropped behind the armor plating, grabbed the .50 caliber, checked the belt. 47 rounds remaining. The bolt was jammed. Carbon fouling. 3 days of sitting in freezing rain had seized the mechanism. Eli pulled the charging handle. Locked. He slammed it with the heel of his hand. Once. Twice. Third time it broke free. He chambered around, swung the gun toward the advancing infantry. 28 German soldiers. SS Waffen troops. Veterans. They moved in tactical formation, covering each other, advancing by fire teams. They thought the American in the barn was dead. They thought the American at the stone wall had retreated. They were looking at the barn, at the rubble, at the smoke. They weren't looking at the half-track. Eli opened fire. The .50 caliber machine gun fired at a rate of 550 rounds per minute. Each bullet weighed 1.7 ounces, traveled at 2,900 feet per second, could punch through brick walls, engine blocks, light armor. Human bodies didn't slow it down at all. Eli walked the fire across the formation, left to right, methodical, the way his father had taught him to mow hay. Start at one end, work to the other. Don't miss a spot. 7 Germans dropped in the first 3 seconds. The rest scattered. Dove for cover, returned fire. Bullets snapped overhead, pinged off the half-track's armor. Eli kept firing, short controlled bursts, 3 to 5 rounds, shift target, fire again. 11 seconds, 47 rounds expended. 13 Germans down, the rest retreating to covered positions. The Germans were confused. Machine gun fire from a new position. Bazooka from the barn before it exploded. How many Americans were defending this bridge? Tank number 2. Seeing the infantry retreat and Tank 1 burning, stopped advancing. The crew radioed for artillery support. Without infantry cover, they wouldn't risk moving forward. The Germans were pulling back, regrouping. 1 tank destroyed, 2 tanks stopped. The bridge still held. Pause. Breathing room. Eli ducked behind the half-track. His ears were ringing from the .50 caliber. His shoulder hurt from the rifle earlier. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the pure chemical reaction of sustained combat. He did what Uncle Matthias had taught him. Breathe, count to 10, get control, 1, 2, 3. His hands steadied. 4, his heart rate dropped. 7, 8, 9, 10, back in control. He checked his ammunition. The .50 caliber was empty. The rifle had 11 rounds left. He had his sidearm, M1911, 7 rounds, no bazooka. That was still in the barn rubble, or what was left of the barn. But he had something else. Intel had reported a disabled German Panzer 75 meters to his right, knocked out 2 days ago by American air support. The crew had abandoned it, left equipment inside, including, if Intel was correct, American equipment they'd captured. Eli looked at the German infantry. They were regrouping, trying to figure out what had just happened. Bazooka fire from the barn they'd just blown apart. Machine gun fire from a half-track they'd thought was abandoned. How many Americans were defending this bridge? Their radio operator was calling it in right now. Eli couldn't hear the conversation, but he knew what was being said. Multiple defensive positions, coordinated fire, estimate squad strength or higher. The truth was simpler. 1 man, 4 positions, and the willingness to sprint between them while they were shooting at him. Mortar rounds started landing. German 81mm. They were targeting the half-track, bracketing shots, walking the fire in. First round hit 30 meters left. Second round 20 meters left. Third round 10 meters left. They were zeroing in. Eli ran 75 meters to the disabled Panzer. Full sprint. German infantry saw him. Opened fire. Bullets snapped past. 1 round hit the ground so close it kicked frozen dirt into his face. The 4th mortar round landed directly where the half-track had been. The explosion was massive. The half-track flipped onto its side, burning. Eli dove behind the disabled Panzer. Rolled, came up against the track assembly. His shoulder was bleeding. Shrapnel from the mortar round. Nothing serious, just pain. He ignored it. Climbed onto the Panzer's deck. Found the commander's hatch. Pulled it open. Inside the tank, exactly where Intel said they'd be, were 4 M39 anti-tank grenades. American-made. Captured by the Germans. Abandoned when they lost the tank. Eli grabbed all 4, climbed back down, looked at the battlefield. Tank number 3 was advancing. Slowly, cautiously. The crew had watched 2 tanks get destroyed in the last 6 minutes. They knew Americans were out there. They didn't know how many. They didn't know where, 115 meters away, moving forward at 5 miles per hour. German infantry were advancing with it, using the tank for cover. Smart tactics. Eli counted them. 20 infantry, maybe 22. Hard to tell with the tank in the way. He looked at the 4 grenades in his hands. M39. Shaped charge. Same principle as the bazooka. Smaller, shorter range, but effective against armor at close range. Effective range 30 meters. The tank was 115 meters away. Eli would have to let it get closer. The final kill. Uncle Matthias used to say hunting taught patience. You don't chase the animal, you let it come to you. Eli waited. Watched the tank advance. 100 meters, 90, 80. The German infantry were spread out behind it. 5-meter intervals. Good tactical spacing. They'd done this before. 70 meters. Eli pulled the pin on the first grenade, held it, waited. 60 meters. The tank's machine gun was scanning. Looking for targets. The gunner couldn't see Eli behind the disabled Panzer. Not yet. 50 meters. The infantry could see him now. Starting to point, starting to shoot out, raising their rifles. Eli stood up, stepped into the open. 22 rifles aimed at him. 22 German soldiers who'd been fighting since Russia, who'd survived 3 years of war, who knew what they were doing. Eli threw the first grenade, not at the tank, at the infantry cluster to the left. The grenade traveled in a flat arc, hit the ground 3 feet from the nearest German, detonated. Shaped charge explosives don't work like regular grenades. They focus the blast, create a jet of superheated metal, designed to punch through armor. Against unarmored infantry, the effect was devastating. 4 Germans dropped. The rest scattered, breaking their formation, moving away from the tank. The tank's turret swung toward Eli. Machine gun opening fire. Bullets snapping past. Eli threw the second grenade. At the tank this time, aimed at the right track. The grenade hit low, detonated next to the track assembly. The shaped charge punched through, found the drive sprocket, the mechanism that moved the track. The sprocket shattered. The track came apart. Links scattered across the frozen ground. The tank stopped. Dead in the water. Mobility kill. 3 tanks, 3 hits. 17 minutes. The German infantry were pulling back, shouting into radios, calling for artillery support, calling for reinforcements, calling for help against an American force they believed was at least squad strength. Maybe platoon. The radio operator at the German command post was writing his second report of the morning. Bridge assault failed. Enemy strength greater than anticipated. 12 to 15 defenders confirmed. Coordinated anti-tank defense. 3 Panzers disabled. Recommend artillery barrage before second assault. 12 to 15 defenders. The mathematics was working. 4 positions. 4 different firing angles. Multiple weapon systems. Bazooka, machine gun, rifle, grenades. No single soldier could move that fast. Could coordinate that many attacks. Could be in 4 places within 20 minutes. Except Eli had been doing exactly that since he was 5 years old. Moving between groundhog burrows in eastern Kentucky. Shooting, relocating, shooting again, making the animals think there were multiple hunters. Same principle, different targets. The Germans were retreating, pulling back 300 meters, regrouping. Eli crouched behind the disabled Panzer, breathing hard. His shoulder was still bleeding. His ears were still ringing. His hands were shaking again. He looked at the stone bridge, still standing, still in American hands. Looked at his watch, 6:54 a.m. He'd bought 17 minutes, maybe 20 if the Germans were cautious. 20 minutes for reinforcements to arrive, for artillery to set up, for someone else to hold this bridge. 20 minutes for 11,000 American soldiers to avoid encirclement. He'd done his job. Then he heard the screaming. The wounded, 385 meters northeast, open field, no cover, 5 American soldiers, wounded, pinned down by German machine gun fire. Eli could see them through the smoke. One was Corporal Warren Thorne, the medic, the only man in Company K who treated him like a person instead of a replacement. Thorne was dragging another soldier toward cover. His movements were wrong, slow, injured. The other 4 soldiers weren't moving at all, lying flat, playing dead or actually dead. Hard to tell from this distance. German machine gun fire raked the field every 30 seconds, keeping them pinned, waiting for them to move so they could finish them. Eli looked at the bridge, looked at the wounded men, did the mathematics. Bridge was secure. Germans were regrouping. Reinforcements would arrive soon. Mission accomplished. Those 5 men would be dead in an hour. maybe less. Army manual said complete the mission. Don't risk the objective for casualties. The bridge matters more than 5 men. But Eli had grown up in a barn in Breathitt County. Alone, cold, hungry, Uncle Matthias yelling at him. Nobody coming to help. He knew what it felt like when nobody came. He'd been that person, waiting for help, watching it not arrive. He couldn't do that to someone else. Eli grabbed his rifle, checked the ammunition. 11 rounds, started crawling toward the wounded Americans, 385 meters. German machine gun nest, 200 meters to the northwest. Clear line of fire across the entire field. The math said this was suicide. Said one man couldn't cross open ground under machine gun fire. Couldn't reach 5 wounded soldiers, couldn't bring them back. The math had been wrong before. Eli had been hunting alone since he was 5 years old, had been fighting alone for 17 minutes. Alone didn't mean impossible. It just meant nobody was coming to help. So he'd help himself and he'd help them. The German machine gun opened fire. Bullets snapped overhead. Eli pressed himself flat against the frozen ground. Counted the seconds between bursts. 8 seconds. 9. 10. Started crawling again. 385 meters to cover. This was going to take a while. The crawl took 35 minutes, 385 meters. Frozen ground. German machine gun firing every 8 to 10 seconds. Eli moved during the pauses. Stopped when the gun opened up. Pressed himself flat. Waited. Moved again. His shoulder was still bleeding. The shrapnel wound from the mortar round. Blood soaked through his jacket. Made the fabric stick to his skin. He ignored it. Pain was information. Information said he was still alive. Still moving. That was enough. 200 meters. The machine gun was closer now. He could hear the bolts cycling. Could hear the spent brass hitting the ground. Could hear German voices coordinating fire. 100 meters from the wounded Americans. Thorne saw him coming, raised his hand slightly, trying to wave him off, trying to tell him to go back. Not worth it. Eli kept crawling. 50 meters. The machine gun opened fire again. Bullets walked across the field, left to right. One round hit 6 inches from Eli's head. Kicked frozen dirt into his eyes. He didn't stop. 20 meters. Thorne was conscious, barely. Both legs were wrong, broken or shattered. Hard to tell. His left hand was gone, blown off at the wrist. He'd tied a tourniquet with his belt. Field medicine. Keeping himself alive. Don't, Thorne said. His voice was weak. Not worth it. Eli reached him, grabbed his jacket, started pulling. Grew up alone, Eli said. Tired of watching people die alone. He dragged Thorne backward, 60 kilograms of body weight plus equipment, across frozen ground, under machine gun fire. The German gunner saw movement, swung the gun, opened fire. Bullets snapped overhead. One round hit Thorne's helmet. Didn't penetrate, just rang it like a bell. Thorne went limp, unconscious or dead. Eli kept pulling, 40 meters to cover, 30, 20. His arms were burning, shoulders screaming. The shrapnel wound had reopened, blood running down his side. 15 meters, 10. He pulled Thorne behind a wrecked supply truck. Cover, safety. Checked his pulse. Still there, weak but present. 1 down, 4 to go. The mathematics of rescue. 4 more wounded soldiers. 385 meters. 4 trips. Total distance, 1,540 meters. Eli looked at his watch. 7:18 a.m. Reinforcements were coming. Maybe 10 minutes out. Maybe 15. He had time. Barely. Second soldier was Private Luca Moretti, 18 years old, from New Jersey. Replacement like Eli. 3 weeks in combat. Gut wound. Bad one. Eli crawled back out. Same route, same machine gun, same 8-second pauses between bursts. Reached Moretti. The kid was conscious, eyes wide, terrified. Am I gonna die? Moretti asked. Eli grabbed his jacket, started pulling. Not today. The machine gun opened fire. Eli pressed flat, waited, pulled again. Moretti screamed, the gut wound. Every movement was agony. Eli understood, but stopping meant dying. Moving meant living. He kept moving, got Moretti behind the truck, checked the wound, bad. Needed a surgeon, needed a hospital. Needed things Eli couldn't provide. But he could get him off this field. 2 down, 3 to go. Third soldier was Sergeant James Kincaid, 24, platoon sergeant. Right leg gone below the knee. He'd packed the stump with dirt and cloth. Stopping the bleeding, Eli pulled him out. The sergeant was heavy, 80 kilograms, more with equipment. Halfway back, the German machine gun found them, bullets ripping through the air. Kincaid took a round through the shoulder. Didn't make a sound, just gritted his teeth. Eli pulled harder, got him to cover. 3 down, 2 to go. Fourth soldier was Private Eddie Reese. No relation to Warren Thorne, just coincidence of names. 19. Shrapnel wounds across his back. Unconscious. The crawl for Reese took 8 minutes, longest one yet. The machine gun was getting smarter, predicting Eli's movements, firing shorter bursts, more frequently. 1 round hit Reese's boot. Didn't penetrate, just tore the leather. Eli got him behind the truck. 4 down, 1 to go. Fifth soldier was Corporal Marcus Webb, 21, radio operator. Left arm shattered. Chest wound. Sucking chest wound, air bubbling through the hole. Webb was talking, delirious, calling for his mother, saying he was sorry, saying he wanted to go home. Eli reached him, put his hand over the chest wound, applied pressure, sealed it. "You are going home," Eli said, "just not today." He grabbed Webb's jacket, started pulling. The German machine gun opened up. Full sustained fire. They'd figured out what Eli was doing, trying to stop him. Bullets everywhere, snapping, cracking, hitting the ground, hitting Webb's equipment. 1 round went through Eli's jacket. Didn't hit skin, just fabric. He pulled harder, faster, ignoring the burning in his shoulders, ignoring the blood, ignoring everything except the man he was dragging. 60 meters, 50, 40. A mortar round landed, 50 meters to the left. Germans were calling in indirect fire, trying to kill them both. 30 meters, 20, second mortar round, 30 meters right. Bracketing. Eli pulled Webb behind the truck. 5 seconds before the third mortar round hit exactly where they'd been. 5 men, 35 minutes. 1,540 meters crawled under fire. All 5 alive. Eli collapsed against the truck. His vision was blurry, hands shaking, breathing in ragged gasps. Thorne was conscious again, looking at him. "Why there?" Thorne asked. "Oh, you don't know most of these men." Eli closed his eyes, thought about the barn in Breathitt County, about his father dying in the mine, about his mother dying because they didn't have $6, about being 12 years old and alone and nobody coming to help. "Know what it's like," Eli said. "When nobody comes, nobody should die like that." 8:05 a.m., the return. Captain Cross came back with reinforcements. 40 men, 2 anti-tank guns, artillery support. The Germans had retreated. 3 disabled tanks, 17 dead infantry. The bridge still stood. Cross found Eli behind the truck, covered in blood. 5 wounded soldiers around him. "You disobeyed a direct order," Cross said. Eli looked up at him, too tired to stand. "Yes, sir." "You engaged 3 Panzer tanks with a rifle and 4 bazooka rockets." "Yes, sir." "You held this bridge for 93 minutes against a reinforced German assault." "Bridge is still standing, sir." Cross looked at the 5 wounded men, at Eli's shoulder, at the blood, at everything. "I'm recommending you for the Medal of Honor," Cross said. "I'm also filing a formal reprimand for disobeying orders." Eli nodded. That was fair. He'd earned both. "Can live with that, sir." Medics arrived, started working on the wounded. Morphine, bandages, stretchers. The things Eli couldn't provide. Thorne grabbed Eli's hand as they loaded him onto a stretcher. "My wife's name is Dorothy," Thorne said. "Got 2 kids, boy and a girl. They get to grow up with a father because you didn't leave me." Eli didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Moretti was next. The gut wound. The medics worked fast. Efficiency born from 3 years of war. "You said I wouldn't die today," Moretti said. "You didn't. What about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow you'll be in a hospital, safer than here." Moretti smiled, weak but real. They evacuated all 5, loaded them into ambulances, drove them to field hospitals. 4 of the 5 survived. Webb died 3 days later. Infection. Antibiotics couldn't save him. But he'd made it off that field. Hadn't died alone. That counted for something, the kitbao. Eli spent 2 days in the field hospital, shrapnel removed from his shoulder. 14 stitches, frostbite on both feet, 2nd degree. They'd heal. Eventually, hearing loss in his right ear. Permanent. The .50 caliber machine gun. Too many rounds fired too close. 3 purple hearts total. The shoulder wound, the frostbite, a concussion he didn't remember getting, and the paperwork. Medal of Honor recommendation. Formal reprimand. Both went into his file. 2 weeks later, Supreme Commander Dwight Eisenhower visited the 30th Division, met with Eli privately, asked him about the bridge. How did you know it would work? Eisenhower asked. One man against 3 tanks. Eli thought about it. About groundhogs in Kentucky, about Uncle Matthias, about mathematics and wind calculation and necessity. Didn't know, sir. Just knew what would happen if I didn't try. Eisenhower wrote in his personal diary that night, December 1945. The entry was declassified in 1989. Private Brennan's defense of Malmedy Bridge demonstrates that tactical innovation under pressure is worth more than rigid adherence to doctrine. His decision to disobey orders and defend that position likely saved thousands of lives and shortened the German offensive by days. His method of creating the illusion of multiple defenders should be studied at every Army tactical school. The Army agreed. Starting in 1947, West Point cadets studied Brennan's 4-position mobile defense in tactical courses. How one soldier with limited ammunition defeated a superior force through movement and deception. But Eli never knew that, because he stopped reading Army publications in 1946, the year he went home. July 27, 1945. The ceremony, Major General Leland Hobbs presented the Medal of Honor. Ceremony at division headquarters. 50 people attended, photographers, officers, enlisted men. Eli stood at attention. Listened to the citation being read. Phrases like extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry and above and beyond the call of duty. Words that described what he'd done but didn't explain why he'd done it. When it was over, reporters asked him questions. How did it feel to hold off 3 tanks by yourself? Scary. What were you thinking when you disobeyed orders? That 11,000 men would die if I didn't. Do you consider yourself a hero? Eli looked at the medal. Heavy, gold, ribbon the color of sky. This belongs to 11,000 men I never met, he said, and 5 I pulled out of that field. I just held the bridge. They printed that quote. It ran in stars and stripes. Made good copy. Eli hated it, hated the attention, hated people looking at him, asking him questions, wanting pieces of him he couldn't give. He wanted to go home, back to Kentucky, back to quiet, back to alone. It would take him 74 years to find quiet. 1946, the return. Elias Brennan married Helen Porter on June 8, 1946. She was a nurse at the VA hospital in Lexington. They'd met when he came in for a hearing test. She knew he'd been in the war, knew he'd won the Medal of Honor. Didn't know the details, didn't ask. You want to talk about it, she asked him once, early in their marriage. No. She never asked again. They moved to Pike County, bought a small house outside Pikeville. Eli got a job at Morrison's Auto Repair, started as a mechanic, worked there for 43 years. He was good at fixing things. Cars made sense, logical, predictable, no variables except the ones you could see. Better than war. They had 3 children, Sarah in 1947, Michael in 1950, Robert in 1953. None of them knew their father had won the Medal of Honor. The medal stayed in a box in the closet. Eli never wore it, never mentioned it. Helen knew why. Because every December 21st, Eli woke up at 6:37 a.m., screaming, shaking, covered in sweat. Every year, for 75 years, she'd hold him, wait for the shaking to stop. He never told her what the nightmare was about. Didn't need to. She could guess. You saved them, she'd whisper. They lived because of you. Eli never responded, because in the nightmare, he didn't save them. He watched them die, watched Thorne bleed out, watched Moretti gut shot and screaming, watched all 5 die while he crawled and couldn't reach them fast enough. The nightmare wasn't about what happened. It was about what almost happened. That was worse. 1963. The visit. Warren Thorne came to Kentucky in September 1963. Drove from Pennsylvania with his wife Dorothy and 4 children. 2 boys, 2 girls. He found Eli at the auto shop. Walked in wearing a suit, leaning on a cane. The legs had never fully healed. You remember me? Thorne asked. Eli looked up from the engine he was working on. Recognized him immediately. 18 years hadn't changed his face that much. Corporal Thorne. Just Warren now. They shook hands. Eli's hands were covered in grease. Thorne didn't care. I brought my family, Warren said. Wanted them to meet you. Eli met them. Dorothy, the 4 kids, ages 7 to 14. These children exist because you crawled 400 meters under machine gun fire, Warren said, because you didn't leave me. Eli didn't know what to say, so he said the truth. Crawled for me too, tired of being alone. Warren understood. He'd been poor too, before the war, understood what it meant to survive when nobody helped you. They had dinner that night at Eli's house. Helen cooked, the children played. Dorothy and Helen talked about nursing. Warren and Eli sat on the porch. Didn't talk much, didn't need to. You ever have nightmares? Warren asked. Every December 21st. Me too, every night for 10 years. Getting better now. Good. They sat in silence, watched the sun set over the Kentucky hills. Thank you, Warren said, for staying. Eli nodded. Didn't need to say anything. Some things didn't need words. October 8th, 2019. The funeral. Elias Brennan died at Pikeville Medical Center. Natural causes, heart failure. He was 94 years old. The obituary in the Appalachian News Express was 4 paragraphs long. Elias Brennan, 94, of Pikeville, died Tuesday at Pikeville Medical Center. He was a World War II veteran who served in the 30th Infantry Division and survived the Battle of the Bulge. After the war, he worked as an auto mechanic at Morrison's Auto Repair for 43 years. He is survived by his wife of 73 years, Helen, 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 14 great-grandchildren. No mention of the Medal of Honor, no mention of Malmedy, no mention of 3 tanks or 5 wounded men or 11,000 soldiers saved. Just another veteran, just another mechanic, just another quiet man from eastern Kentucky. The funeral was at First Baptist Church. 600 people attended. His children were shocked. They'd expected maybe 50 people, family, friends from church, fellow mechanics. They didn't understand why 600 people came to mourn a mechanic who never talked about himself. Then Lieutenant Colonel Emma Thorne stood up to speak. Warren Thorne's granddaughter. Army, 3rd generation. She'd never met Eli, but she'd read her grandfather's letters. She opened a folder, pulled out a letter, written in 2001. Warren had died that year, cancer. The letter was his final testament. Emma read it aloud. My name is Warren Thorne. I am 79 years old. I have a wife, 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and 22 great-grandchildren. All of them exist because of Elias Brennan. On December 21st, 1944, near Malmedy, Belgium, I was wounded. Both legs broken, left hand gone, lying in a field with 4 other men. German machine gun had us pinned. We were dead men. Eli crawled 385 meters to reach us, under fire, wounded, alone. He dragged me out first, then came back 4 more times, saved all 5 of us. The Army gave him the Medal of Honor. He never wore it, never mentioned it, never told his family. That's the kind of man he was. Did something impossible. Saved 11,000 soldiers that day by holding a bridge nobody thought one man could defend. Saved 5 more by refusing to leave us behind. Then went home. Fixed cars, raised a family, lived quiet, never talked about it, not once in 75 years. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and Eli probably is too. Tell his family what he did. Tell them why 600 people are at his funeral. Tell them their father was the bravest man I ever knew. And tell them he saved us all. Emma folded the letter, looked at Eli's children. Sarah, Michael, Robert, all 3 were crying. Your father never told you, Emma said. Because heroes don't talk about being heroes. They just do what needs doing, then go home. The legacy, Highway 23 through Pike County, was renamed Elias Brennan Memorial Highway in 2020. Small signs every 5 miles. No statue, no monument, just his name. West Point still teaches Brennan's 4-position mobile defense and tactical courses. Case study in asymmetric warfare. How one soldier defeated superior force through movement and deception. The bridge at Malmedy still stands. A plaque was added in 2021. This bridge was defended on December 21, 1944, by soldiers of the 30th Infantry Division, United States Army. Their sacrifice prevented the encirclement of Allied forces and contributed to the ultimate defeat of Nazi Germany. No names on the plaque. Eli would have preferred it that way. The final count was never precise, but historians estimate 11,247 American soldiers survived the Malmedy sector because that bridge didn't fall. Combined descendants of those soldiers, 51,000 people living today. Most of them have never heard the name Elias Brennan. He would have wanted it that way too, because he never fought for recognition, never fought for medals or parades or his name on highways. He fought because 11,000 men would die if he didn't, because 5 wounded soldiers needed someone to come for them when nobody else would. He fought because he'd been alone since he was 12 years old, and he was tired of watching people die alone. That was enough. That was always enough.